back. Right now, we are still waiting at this hour to see what the balance of power will be on Capitol Hill when all of the votes are counted.
There are dozens of House races and 5 Senate races still undecided. Back with us this morning for post-election recap is political science professor Stephen Caliendo from North Central College. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning to both of you.
As promised, you delivered the bow tie. We like to see that.
I keep my promises.
Absolutely. So
yes.
2 closely watched congressional races here in Illinois ended up staying in Democratic hands.
That's right.
We're talking about Sean Casten in the 6th District and Lauren Underwood in the 14th District.
That's right.
The gubernatorial race went pretty much as expected, but what's your take on how these tight congressional races ended up?
Yeah, most of the races in our area went as expected, as we talked about yesterday morning, but I think there was definitely a question of was there going to be a national wave that affected
a red wave?
Those? Yeah, absolutely, and we didn't see that.
More of a splash.
We see a little bit of a splash, and it will be enough maybe for control of Congress to shift. We'll probably talk about that later in the morning, but in terms of the local races, I think these are new districts. These folks are running in districts that they didn't have to run in before, but they held them. And Foster, too, I would add, a third district there in the suburbs as well.
All right, so a big talker this morning, people are going to be waking up saying, do we know anything more about this balance of power? Can you talk about that? I mean, we have 5 Senate races still up for grabs right now.
It's going to be a while. And we talked yesterday morning about maybe Georgia being the swing. Now, we have 5 races that we don't know about yet. The Georgia race is so close. Not only is it so close, there's going to be a runoff. So there may be a recount to determine whether there needs to be a runoff. There's just going to be a lot going on there. So we got to be patient on that. It's going to take a couple of days. The bigger surprise is that we don't know for sure that the House is going to Republican control. I thought we'd be sitting here this morning saying Republicans took the House. The question is still by how much. On average, presidents lose about 31 seats in the House. Their party loses 31 seats in the House. Right now, we still don't even know if the Republicans will totally take control. I expect they will. The Senate, it's going to be a couple days.
Well, why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I think one of the it wasn't a good night for Donald Trump. I think a lot of the folks that he backed ended up losing, and especially when you compare that with what happened with Ron DeSantis in Florida, who did so well, not only in Florida broadly, but even in Democratic-held areas among Latinos in Florida. So I think Ron DeSantis is waking up this morning saying, I got a better track toward 2024 than I did a day ago, and Donald Trump's got to really be thinking about whether or not he's going to be able to get the support he needs to move forward, and the Republicans have to figure out whether they want to continue to stay anchored to Donald Trump.
And speaking of Donald Trump, I mean, he said maybe next week we could hear about a potential presidential bid. So that, how could that affect, that announcement and just that momentum?
It was interesting because, remember, a couple of days ago, the idea was it was going to be November 15th, and then there was a leak 2 days ago saying maybe he was going to do it when he was in Ohio with J.D. Vance, right. And then he didn't do it. And then what about last night? Was he going to say something then? He hasn't said anything yet. I think that there's got to be people in his ear right now saying we got to assess this, whether it makes sense. But I think we've learned a lot about Donald Trump in the last 5 years, and he's going to make up his own mind. That's for sure.
And you never know what's going to come out.
You never know.
We're all going to be listening for sure. Stephen Caliendo, thanks so much for your analysis on the election, the midterms here. We'll see you again coming up at 6:30.
Sounds good.